So last week guys, you saw that I purchased one of my dream cars, an Audi TTRS AS with the infamous Dazzler engine. However, you will have seen that it wasn't all as it seems and the car had been involved in a crash, which means I'm now embarking on my first ever rebuild journey. So in last week's video, I mentioned that I was worried about the engine, given it had been started multiple times with so many crucial parts missing from the engine. Well, in today's video, things didn't go quite to plan.
Oh no, oh my god, check this out guys, look at this. We've got a leak. The front end looks like it's been crumpled. It's the fan and look how close, I mean it's practically hitting. Wow, this isn't even mud, it's basically this coolant leaking from. So welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. Behind me, or by the side of me, I've got my Audi TTRS AS, which I recently purchased. Now the purpose of today's video is to essentially get the engine started. Now there are a couple of things that we realised from last week's video. Firstly, that there was no coolant, and secondly, that the oil was basically at a min, so literally non-existent. So overall the engine does look pretty decent, albeit it has obviously been in some sort of accident. There are quite a few parts that are missing that I realised last week. Whoever owned this car did have some sort of aftermarket intake, because I can see the Forge Motorsport turbo elbow. It's missing the intake pipe and it's also missing the actual airbox. In today's video, what we'll do is we'll take a deeper dive of the engine bay and really understand what's missing, and in addition to what's missing, what ultimately is going to need to be replaced. So what things I'm actually going to have to order. Some things are going to be aftermarket, some things are going to be OEM. I think whilst the front end is basically pretty much dismantled, I think it's worth me getting things like an aftermarket intercooler and stuff like that. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think I should keep this car stock for a little while, or do you think whilst the front end is pretty much off, do you think I should start making some changes now, such as applying a new intercooler? So you'll have to forgive me for the absolute mess my garage is in right now. But as you can see, I've got a stock RS3 8V intercooler there. So for those who follow me on TikTok and Instagram, you'll know that I basically went on a bit of a shopping spree. I got oil for the Q3, the TTRS, and also for my S3. So we've got some Millers laying around here somewhere. I don't know where it is exactly. I also bought 10 litres of pre-mixed coolant. I need to make sure that there's no leaks, because if there's a leak, that's when we've got an issue. So I'm praying that there's no leak, so fingers crossed. So 10 litres, like I said. So this is the spec that I need. Already pre-mixed, ready to use. Yeah, and I got these off Amazon, so yeah, happy days. And I also bought a coolant vacuum. So I'm assuming that this, and I've opened it the wrong way around. Awesome. But yeah, here we go. That's a coolant vacuum. It looks proper legit, I'm not gonna lie. To ensure that the coolant system is holding pressure, and obviously when I fill up the system with fresh coolant, I bought an actual vacuum to ensure that there's no kind of like trapped air or anything like that. I think it was like 55 quid off Amazon. I'll put it in the link in the description. In addition to the coolant, because I also got that off Amazon too, at a really decent price, the best price I could find for a next day delivery. For the Quantum, I think it was £40 or £45 for 10 litres, and I think for the Millers it was £60. No, actually for the Millers it was £118 for 10 litres. So yeah, I'll pop all of that stuff in the description box below. So my brother-in-law owns an Audi RS3 8V with a Dazzler engine, the Sportback, and he still had his OEM intake pipe and his OEM airbox. So the aim is to basically get this all connected up. I'm assuming this clip clips into there. Ah, that's probably what goes into there. But what's really interesting is this pipe seems really small in terms of the diameter. It doesn't seem like it'd even go in there, let alone over it. Another issue I've just seen, and I didn't think about this, is obviously that's a Forge Motorsport turbo elbow. That looks pretty big. I think that's maybe about 4 inch from just guessing. There's no way that's going to fit, and I don't even think that was designed to fit with an OEM intake pipe. So that's one issue that I didn't think of. Another thing is, if I put that to the side, now you may or may not remember, but there was this like really funny thing here last time, and I'd never seen it before, and I just thought, oh, maybe that's where the kind of like the cone sits. And because obviously I don't see this engine enough, I'm just like, oh yeah, maybe that's just like an OEM part. I didn't mean to do this because I wanted to do it on video, but I actually just was playing around and I managed to just get it off because I wanted to see if there was any kind of Audi part numbers on it, and I'll show you where I got this from in a second. So this is your intake pipe, which comes to about there, and then ultimately you have obviously your cone filter, and sometimes you can also have some casing too. Now, what I found really weird about this is I was thinking to myself, well, hold up, what is this actually for, and is it a genuine Audi part? So what I realised is, so this is an Audi genuine part. These, which I got off this, which I basically unscrewed, are not genuine. So I think the previous owner of this car must have had some sort of custom intake. Audi's wells are not like that, like at all. So this is definitely custom. I'm not going to throw it away just in case I need it. If you think about it, so when I try to put this in, obviously you've got these rubber bungs here, which obviously kind of need to slot into something. So I can see one there, I can see one there. This sits like that, kind of, right? In a way. But in a way, it just, now for the sake of me, I could not figure out how this would fit. So I was thinking to myself, well, actually, what if the RS3 and the Audi TTRS, what if they have different airboxes? Like technically they are different cars, even though they might have the Dazzler engine. What if they're different? And what I realised is, you see where these rubber bungs sit in, there's nothing for them to actually be planted into, there's nothing for them to kind of actually stick into. And the reason for that is, and I'm going to quickly show you a diagram that I found last night, there's like a plate that sits here, and that plate ultimately is where those rubber bungs essentially sit into, so essentially where those rubber grommets kind of sit into. So that is something that I'm going to order. So annoyingly, in today's video, I'm not going to be able to connect any type of intake system up just because I'm missing some OEM parts, which is really annoying. This pipe as well from Vibrant, this is also aftermarket, so he definitely must have been running some sort of aftermarket intake. So whether it was a full forged system, I don't know. So it's definitely not the end of the world, the fact that I can't connect the intake system up. It is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. I don't technically need that for me to just quickly start the engine up. Actually, I don't even know if the intercooler will set up because they're forged. These, I'm pretty sure, are forged intake hoses. They look absolutely filthy, so maybe in the next video I'm gonna get a camera. I've got one of those like colonoscopy type of cameras that you can fit into really small places, and I'm gonna definitely check that maybe in the next video. I'll put it down there. When I'm ready to connect the intake pipe up and ready to connect the intercooler up, I'll put it up. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some water, distilled water, in the coolant tank, and we're gonna see if it basically leaks or not. And depending if it leaks or not will most likely depend on if I do the oil change today, because I don't think there's any point of me doing that. I think also I will get the car up on my ramps and essentially just see what the underneath is looking like, because yeah, there are a couple of pipes that I said in the last video, and I'll show you again in a second, that are loose and I don't actually know where they kind of link up to. Here's something else that I realised. Do you remember this sound that I was referring to in the last video when I was opening and closing the door? That there. You can hear that, can't you? I now know what that is. At first I thought, oh, maybe it's something to do with the bonnet and obviously the latch, because obviously I know it's snapped. Maybe it's something to do with the mirror, because I know that's been sheared off. It's actually none of those things. Let me show you exactly what it is. So given that there's been front end damage on this side in particular, you can see here that this has actually been knocked out of line. And if you see all the way here, you can see these little silver marks here. The door is actually catching on the front driver's side wing. So let me try to show you in action. There, can you see? You can actually see exactly where it's hitting there, right there. Then you can actually see it ricocheting. Yeah. It is only very minute, but I think what I'm gonna have to do is actually remove this driver's side wing, which I might do anyway, because I think there's a dent in there. I think. I might actually just try get a new front wing if I need to. Small but very annoying issues. Hopefully there should be no pressure in here really. Something that somebody mentioned to me is you should actually take the silicone bag out of there. Now, I've never done that on my S3 just because I've heard it's a bit hit and miss, but let me know, do you think I should take the silicone bag out of the coolant tank reservoir? Because I can see it, apparently they explode and they cause all type of like water thermostat issues and whatnot, but aim is, if I could just fill this up. This car's on a flat surface, yet the coolant tank looks a bit bent. Oh my god, yeah, you know, I've just realised that. Oh no, oh my god, check this out, guys, look at this. We've got a leak. God's sake, at least one thing's clear. We know it's got a coolant issue, at least we know where the coolant's coming from, and we also know what this little loose pipe is. Oh, here we go. Right, okay, so there's no point me doing a pressure test because it's just not going to hold pressure. Okay, so I generally wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't hoping that there would be a coolant leak, but I've just realised a couple of other things. As I was looking down at the coolant tank, I was like, why is it like that? The car's level, on level surface, why is the coolant tank like that? But I've also seen that this coolant tank is actually out of place. I'm a little bit worried now, because when you look at things at a different angle, this is obviously, it's really weird because there's no damage to the front crash bar. But what's really weird is that front end, the rad pack, looks like it's been crumpled. It looks extremely close to the engine. Like the fans, for example, look like they're touching some of the other pipes. Like it looks like everything's at an angle. And I did say this last time, actually, to be fair. Everything looks like that, like at an angle. So I'm not sure whether it's had impact. I don't know where it's had impact. And basically, like, I don't know, it's really weird. But this is really weird. Like the coolant tank, it's like it's not in any of its grommets, if that makes sense. Thing on this side. Oh, so that's in there. Okay, that's in. Oh no. Oh, okay. Why is that leaking now? So we've got a leak from the actual coolant tank, and realised that the coolant tank wasn't actually right. There might not necessarily be any damage to the actual radiator. For some reason, I don't know when whoever has disconnected the intercooler, they've basically disconnected the pipes of the radiator too. I think it might be worth just me taking this whole rad pack off. But just look how close everything looks. I mean, that's the fan. I mean, it looks like it's at an angle. That's the fan, and it's look how close it is. Look there, for example, look at the fans there. I don't know why that reminds me of vomit. See, I don't want any of these wires to get wet. Like, that's, what the fuck has happened to that? Oh no. So what's annoying is I feel like I keep noticing new things, like a lot of the wires. I mean, I really don't know what's happened here. When you like look at it proper, I'd really like to know what kind of accident this was involved in. I really would. But anyway, what I've just noticed, this has been sheared off. They're kind of like, you know, the coating that covers some of the wires, that's just been sheared off. Additionally, obviously you can see that the coolant pipe's obviously loose. So here you can see clearly that that is not straight. So you can see how it curves there. Look at the crash bar there, a lot straighter it looks like. A lot straighter. So just whilst I'm here, I thought I'd show you, all the back is absolutely spot on. I can't see any damage, like literally none whatsoever. You can see the cats. It's not even had a res delete actually. Has it had a res delete actually? I don't know if it has had a res delete, but everything looks unbothered at the back, to be totally honest with you. Absolutely totally unbothered. So I finally got on the ramps. I had to jack it up because I don't know if for some reason, I think because the ground's a little bit slightly unlevel and the concrete's not flat here, I couldn't get the jack stands underneath, so basically I had to jack it up and get the wheel stands underneath. The rad pack is definitely bent. What? Let's see. Alright. So there's no under tray. Wow. So really muddy, like chunks of mud. Something's also missing here. Ah, yeah, do you know what's happened? Look at the chunks of mud. I don't know if that under tray has been... Right, I'm going to show you something in a sec. I'm going to get underneath, I'm going to take the under tray off, because half the under tray has basically been just absolutely dismantled. And this is also part of the under tray. This was just basically hanging off. It was basically stuck on a clip. Like you can see, that's pretty robust, that really. That plastic wise, so. Lefty loosey, so we need to go the other way. Do you know what I need? I need one of those ramps that TR Hamza has. You can see it's ready to basically come down now. There we go. So here we go, served on a platter for you. Here is the, or whatever the remains are, of the under tray with loads of proper solid. Wow, this isn't even mud, it's basically stone covered in mud, and I'll show you what I mean. So like just massive large chunks of rock or stone. It's kind of annoying that. I'm going to make a note. When I took the rad pack off my S3, it was so difficult. I was stressed beyond belief because I thought, how on earth am I going to get this back together? Because I was like, there's no way. But you know what? I managed to do it. Do you know, I'm surprised there's no airbags that have gone on off either. I want to see another TTRS. Look at this. Look at the gap just there, for example, yeah? Should it be that close? Should everything be that? Should it be like that? But then if it was like that, then really they won't line up. So hopefully you can see the AC condenser seems to be fine. Although if I'm going to replace the whole thing, it might just make sense to replace everything. There's damage here, and you can see here clearly there's coolant leaking from the radiator. The crash sheet will come off now. So the crash bar's off. To be honest, I don't actually think there's any damage to the crash bar. Weirdly enough. Right, so annoyingly, I think for me to take the rad pack off completely, there's a couple of hoses here and there which I don't.
So you might see that I look a little defeated in this clip, but what's funny is I actually recorded an outro straight after this clip stating that I didn't want to mess around with the AC lines and I was a little bit worried, and I was ultimately just going to call it quits. But then I saw something familiar, and let's just say my spirits were uplifted.
There is absolutely no one on YouTube that shows you how to take or separate out the rad pack or slam panel casing to basically access the AC condenser and the radiator. Absolutely no one. Fortunately, I saw these clips and I was like, where do these look familiar from? I had these and they were so annoying. So I've got to disconnect this and then I've got to figure out, because obviously it's broken in half. I need to, maybe all I need to do is get the casing and I can basically keep the fans. Hopefully I don't need to get new fans. So you know what's funny? When I did my intercooler on my S3, one of the things they said was, make sure you don't damage these clips. And when I refer to these clips, I'll show you in a second, but they're on the radiator. Make sure you don't damage these clips. These clips are so important, blah, blah, blah. And they actually are quite expensive for clips, bearing in mind. How I did it was first, voila, and that's how you do it. Now woo! So you can see they've now been pushed out, which means really this should just come off now. Yeah, it'll be a little bit hard. I mean, it is hard, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not. Right, I think. Right, so that's the top half of the casing that's just basically come off, and also it has the parts numbers here. It says Coupe and Roadster. I didn't know it differs. Awesome. Let's pop that there. Right, now we've got clear access. I'll tell you what's funny, yeah? I recorded an outro where I was like, guys, I'm gonna go now. Really disappointed that I wasn't able to take the rad pack off today, but we know we'll do it next week, blah, blah, blah. I went in, had my lunch, and whilst I was having my lunch, I was like, you know what, Ranj, you've got to come out and just do it. And if it works, it works. And you know what, it works. So it just goes to show, don't give up. Because yeah, things can sometimes just be an arsehole. Here's where we're at. So the top of the rad pack casing is off. The bottom of the rad pack casing I still need to take off. There's basically two bolts that are holding it in place. And I don't know if you'll be able to see them, but they're there. So can you see one's there and one's there. Done. This one is the right one, this one's the left one that was stuck. So you can probably see why it was stuck. There we go. There we go. So you can see just how much more. So this is the bottom of the rad pack casing, or the slam panel casing. Absolutely wrecked, so I'll put that there. I think that's what I might do. I think I might take the AC condenser and place it onto the left. Right, so the AC condenser's loose, I'm happy with that. Now it's a matter of just getting the radiator off and then I'm going to call it a day, I think. So look at that, 56 quid for a brand new radiator, which I'm really happy about, to be fair. Is this the right one? I think it is anyway. Worst comes to worst, I'll just... Ooh, that one looks like a new... Oh, I think it's just... If I'm honest, I think it's just the same one for... The only interesting thing is that the back of it or the... Ah, so for a genuine win, it's £211.
So there were a couple of things that I forgot to mention whilst recording, simply because I forgot and I was so stressed with getting this rad pack off in time. So I noticed in addition to the intercooler which is missing, there are also two additional coolers for the coolant, which are just in front of the front wheels. And if you look at this diagram, you'll actually be able to see what I'm referring to. And these are things that I think at this stage, I'll need to get the TTRS back on the road.
So what an absolute hectic day with the TTRS. You know what? I nearly quit. I'm glad I didn't. We've got the AC condenser pretty much loose. We've got the radiator pretty much off. I'm not going to take it fully off right now just because I don't think I really need to. I'm going to order a replacement. So at the beginning of this video, I thought, oh, do you know what? There's only a couple of parts I need. In fact, there's a lot of parts I need. Some are going to be aftermarket, like I said, and some are going to be OEM. Please let me know in the comments whether you think I did a good job today. I think I did, to be fair, because you know what? I was so close at quitting. I thought, you know what? Forget this. I can't be bothered. And then I literally saw those clips. You know what? Thank God for those clips, and thank God that Audi designed the car so similarly. Had I not seen those clips, I would not have realised how easy it would have been to basically take the slam panel off. Now, whilst it might not seem that I've made a lot of progress with the TTRS today, in fact, I think I actually have. So I'll be honest, I think the TTRS is going to be a lot sooner on the road than expected. I think once I get this engine malarkey out of the way, all I've really got to focus on is the aesthetic stuff, and that's quite simple and straightforward. If you need to get something resprayed, you need to get something resprayed. There's not a lot of thoughts in that thought process. This car's going to look amazing once it's done. At first, I also thought that I might be able to save some of the tyres. I don't think I am. I think maybe one or two which I might sell, because there's no point in me just having two Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's. This front one is questionable. It really is. I don't know if it's buckled. Now, as I mentioned in last week's videos, the mirrors on my Audi TTRS are power folding electric heating, and also they have the auto dimming feature, which means that they are quite expensive. I had a look at the parts, and the glass alone can cost upwards of around £500, which is a bit of a piss take in my opinion, but nonetheless managed to find some on eBay. They're coming from Germany, and hopefully they are here for next week's video, because I'm going to plan on doing a weekly update on this TTRS. I'm also hoping for next week we have some update and a fix for the intake issue, because I can't put an OEM intake on. Well, I can, but that would mean I would have to remove the forged turbo elbow. And let me know if you agree, but I think it makes sense to just go for an aftermarket one now. I don't want to break the bank, I really don't, so I'm going to try be as financially savvy as I possibly can. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Please do make sure you give it a thumbs up, drop a comment whether you enjoyed it too. Please do make sure you stick around, tune in, lock in. Take it easy until next time. Peace.